Aloha, it's Jill, the Barefoot Grandma again. I just talked to you a few minutes ago. And this is part 2 of the relationship piece on these videos. And if you haven't yet watched the first part, there I talk about the reason why to employ a strategy when it comes to dealing with your relationships really early on in the process or after you've been diagnosed. And I gave an example of an exercise that you might want to consider undertaking with your special person or persons in your life to help facilitate just good healing and to conserve your energy. So this piece of the video, though, is going to be talking about 3 specific groups. Your spouse, partner, wife, husband, significant other, whoever that person might be, your children, and also potentially your parents. If any of this applies, it's not meant to be static. It's very personal to you. So take what applies, tweak it. But I just thought maybe these thoughts might help you. So with your spouse or partner, the one thing that I would say once again early on is sitting down with that person and making an agreement that however long this process and journey takes, that the two of you are going to make communication a top priority between you. Really commit to each other, to tell each other what you need. This is definitely not a time to rely on the other person should be able to read your mind. It's also a bad trap to assume for your partner, or rather that your partner should assume that they can't tell you what they're feeling or what they need. This is not all about you. It's about you getting better, but you don't live in a bubble. And so for it to work, for your relationship to survive this journey, it's really important to focus on communication. The other thing I would say, it's important for your partner or spouse to have time away from you. That may sound a little harsh, but for their mental health, they've got to be able to go have time to laugh, to exercise, to have quiet time, to not deal with family and friends, but to have some me time of their own. And that may even mean they need to go away for a day or two. And if they not even need to, I would encourage you as the person that's been diagnosed to encourage them to go away. Maybe it's for a whole day, come back in the evening, or maybe it's a day or two and be gone over evening. Maybe it's going out with friends. Their health is as important as yours because it's with them that you're going to have to deal with family, provide for your children and your parents through this time. You're going to need that person as your support system when you're not well, so it's really important that they're healthy. I also, having talked with my husband after this journey and kind of learning some things that he didn't share with me, if I were to do it again, I would really encourage him to find his own support group. Depending on where you're at, that may or may not be available. I would imagine that in this day and age, there are some online resources, but the things that person, be it a man or a woman, that's very unique to them. They may be angry, they may be resentful, and they're not going to be able to feel comfortable probably sharing some of that with you. They're not going to want to put that on you, and they need a resource to process that. So a support group, a therapist, very, very appropriate and highly encouraged. And then the other thing I'm not going to deal with today, because it deserves its own video, and that's about sex and intimacy. Boy, that's a scary one. And I think it's scary for both sides, your partner and yourself. for vastly different reasons. So not getting into that, please be looking for that video if that's something that you're curious about. So moving on to children, and how you deal with your relationships with your children has a lot to do with how old they are. I would say for grown children or older children, it's really okay to share what's going on within reason and with what's comfortable between you and your partner. Explain the process. Let them know, what's going to be happening with your treatment. Let them know maybe what the side effects are going to be and how they can participate. Regardless of how old your children are, be they older or little ones, encourage them to share their fears. Let them know that you're strong enough, or maybe it's your partner that's strong enough to hear that. It's important for them to share that. Kids, regardless of age, internalize that kind of stuff, and that's not the stuff you want sitting in their tummies or in their hearts or in their heads trying to deal with on their own. So, encourage them to talk to you, or if you feel like they're resistant to that, help them find a person in your family or with a therapist perhaps where they can share that stuff. And that there's no topic that's not on the table. Their fears take different turns, or maybe they're angry. Maybe they're usually anger is based in fear. They may be afraid that you're not going to be around, and they could be angry about that. So whatever comes from them, that might be something that you in turn want to bring up in your support group or with your therapist, because it's going to elicit emotions. You're going to feel guilty or you're going to feel sad. And so this is a trickle effect. Everybody's got to help everybody else take care of themselves. And it's really important, once again, regardless of how old your children is, to let them know it's okay to continue on with their lives. It's okay to go to baseball practice. It's okay to go to gym. It's okay to take their to go to their band lessons. It's okay to do art. It's okay to laugh. Laughing is so important, so healing, so refreshing, and your kids should not have to feel like they have to stop laughing. And the best way for them to know it's okay is to role model that for them. Tell jokes if you can, or have, make it okay for adults around you to tell jokes around your kids and around you. Their lives haven't stopped because yours have taken a slight detour. Theirs needs to stay as normal as it possibly can. And that's about role modeling. That's a burden that you and your partner, or perhaps other people in that second ring, is going to need to share and help you with, so that you can communicate to them that it's okay to keep living. And worst case scenario, way down the road, if things aren't going well, there'll be time to deal with that. But that's far away, and perhaps not ever on your agenda. And but it is going to be important to let them know that that life goes on. They may need a support group of their own. They may need a therapist. They may need you or your spouse, or maybe your CIC, to help facilitate that. And it's okay, even for little people, give them some assignments. How do I help mommy or daddy in this time? And I tell a story when my youngest daughter was born. My 3 older children, I had her at home, and my 3 older children were around, and immediately after the birth and leading up to the birth, and one of the tasks was giving mom water. And so, the straw, the glass of water, and that was assigned to somebody, and I was floating. I had so much water. But it's important to give them based on age appropriateness. It could be if they're older, taking care of something in the home, or it may mean just sitting with mom or dad and reading to them, or it may mean going out and picking flowers, or it may mean helping with dinner. But kids need to feel like they're a part of the process in a positive way. So this is another area you can do some pre-brainstorming so that you've got things to hand out, if you will, throughout the process. And then letting your kids know it's okay to be angry, and if your kids do act out, give them the space to do that. If it's a temper tantrum or it's uncontrollable crying, give them some space, and then either yourself or the identified person, have them go check in with them. And then the last thing I would say, particularly for younger kids, is once you've been diagnosed and kind of get through that first immediate process, you need to reach out to their teachers and perhaps even the administration of your kids' school. Let them know what's happened in your life, and ask your teachers to be a partner with you and to, keep a little extra eye and not make a big deal out of it. There's no need to bring that out in front of class, but let your teacher know that your child or children may be going through a tough time. They may act out, they may misbehave, they may fly off the handle, they may get up and storm out of the class. Any of those things are okay, and it will be okay if your teacher knows what's going on. So, ask them to contact you as soon as they start to see any kind of behavior. Maybe it's your child's gotten quieter, or maybe their grades are slipping, or they're not turning in homework. Your teachers can be your partner, and there's no need to share intimate details, but it will benefit your kids in the long run. Kind of a couple of other really quick stories along with kids. So my oldest daughter was at Cal Poly at the time, and she played volleyball. She was there on a volleyball scholarship. And I was bald during that time, and I would go to her games. And, another way to let grown kids know that it's okay, this is an example of that. Spirit, athletics and spirit go hand in hand. And so I would paint her jersey number on my face, and go Mustangs, and root, and I was bald. I didn't wear a hat, or I didn't wear a wig, so I had kind of this whole canvas that I could do things with. And just don't stop living for yourself. Go to things, do things. So that's an example of one of my older kids. And then my youngest daughter at the time, I think she was about 11, she went through a real angry period. And I remember actually we were at San Luis Obispo at one of my older daughter's games, and my youngest daughter was just being a pill. She was being a real pain in the butt and really angry and resentful. And, it's really hurtful, I have to say. You don't want that. You don't want that kind of relationship with your child, but you got to know they're in pain. They're confused. And, I remember she got really angry with me in a parking lot and told me how much she hated me and wished I died. And obviously she didn't mean that. Obviously my daughter loved me and was just scared. But it's yet another example of, you just don't know how your kids are going to internalize and externalize this process, and you've got to figure out how to make it okay for them. And then lastly, I want to talk about parents and grandparents. My grandparents weren't here. I'm a grandparent now, so I come to this piece from a different side. If I imagine what one of my grandchildren or children, if they were struggling with something like this, how would I feel? But this has a lot to do with the kind of relationship that you have with your parents or grandparents. If it's a good relationship, you deal with it one way. If it's a toxic relationship or there's no relationship, you deal with it in another way. But one of the things I would suggest if you have a decent or a good relationship with your parents or grandparents is to take time to check in with them. You have to reverse roles and realize that they're probably terrified. You know, this is out of order. You know, it's them. They're the older ones. Something's supposed to happen to them, not to their children, their grandchildren, and that's very frightening. And that's where I put the shoe on the other foot when I think of my kids or my grandchildren. If something like that were to happen, how devastated I would be and how terrified I would be. And while it would not be their job to reassure me or make me feel better, what I would say then, putting the hat of the cancer survivor on, I didn't do a very good job with my mom in this case. And my relationship with my mom was challenging, to say the least. But so many years later, I look back and wished that I would have embraced her more and at least spoken, validated the fears that, even though we fought a lot, and validated the fears that she must have had. And, you know, I didn't have the wherewithal to give a lot, but I could have coordinated that with my husband better. I could have said I loved you more and got out of myself a little bit better. And that was just me. I look back at me understanding where I was, and that's how I come to that conclusion. That might not necessarily be true for you, and that's okay. If you're struggling just to keep one foot in front of the other, then have your husband do it, have your wife do it, have your partner do it, have a sister or brother do it if they're capable, or have your CIC person do it. You know, but have somebody touch base with your parents. On the flip side, if you don't get along and you're estranged from them, now is not necessarily the time to try to mend that. You might want to consider that if you feel it's important after this journey is over, but now is probably not the time to take on a big emotional mending. If you have a good relationship with your mom or your dad or one of your grandparents, you know, I would say it would be beneficial to you and to them to make space for reflection, share stories, you know, open up the door to say I love you or to talk about things. Again, based on where you are. This is about you, very personalized to you. You know, you have to decide how much you want to share with your parents and your grandparents. This is based on your needs, your family's needs, and what your parents or grandparents' needs might be. How much can they handle? So, you know, that's another one of those decisions that you're going to have to make. And then just reiterating, you know, if your parents or grandparents are fragile, having an outside person, you know, you and your husband, wife, partner are going to have enough. You know, and not to say that you're not going to check in with them, but this is where your CIC person can be helpful if you have a fragile parent or grandparent. Friends, you know, colleagues, that's a case-by-case basis. Going back to that, just real quickly, that bullseye strategy plan. This is all about you. It's all about where you put people in those concentric rings, and doing so early on. What I will say from the bottom of my heart is there is no right or wrong. If you screw something up, in your opinion, you'll fix it later. You know, it's not the end of the world if somebody gets their feelings hurt. Just heal. Conserve your energy. Take care of your family. Enjoy your life as much as you can. Laugh if you can. And with that, if you've liked this video, I would be really honored and very appreciative if you would like it. Down below, if you would like to subscribe, there will be 18 videos in this series, and the next one I believe is on support groups. I've chopped them up little bits at a time, and please share if you feel someone else would benefit. And with that, thank you for allowing me time to talk to you. I hope this is helpful. With aloha.